Alright, so this program is about remove invalid parentheses. We have been given some kind of brackets and some of them might be false because we need to have starting and closing. Along with that, there might be some letters. If we can't find anything right, then we have to send empty string, and if we can, then we have to find the right possible value. So let's get started. First of all, let's check our base case. If s is a null, then we just print the empty string, and we're done with that part. That's just an edge case. Let's create our answer. List of string. Let's call it answer is equal to new array list. Now, as there are multiple approaches that we can choose for this problem, I'm specifically inclining with the BFS because I feel like that's the best structure which can align with this kind of problem, because we find one path and then for all the possible paths that can be gone through the first path, we will explore all of them altogether, and then we're going to continue until we find the right value. And we have to find the minimum possible removals. So for that purpose, what we can do is we can start by removing 1, then 2, then 3, and eventually once we find our right value, at that point whatever will be in our structure, we will find all those values and return it at the end. So let's start with our queue, and we are using queue, so for BFS it's a good data structure that can be used because whatever we add in the beginning, we keep adding all the children accordingly, or all the possible solutions, and at the end we come back to whatever we added and then we start removing them. So let's call it queue of string, and this, let's call it just queue is equal to new linked list. And similarly, I'm gonna go ahead and create a set, because the set we will be using for the purpose of not recalculating the same values we have already encountered, because let's say we removed some kind of brackets and then we go further, and at some point there could be a scenario where we see the same bracket structure again after removing, so we don't want to keep calculating the similar things, which is why I'm creating a set. So let's create a new hash set. And now that we are done, we also need to have, let's say, one variable which we can call it found is equal to false by default. If we, in case we found the value, then we just have to thread through all the possible outcomes that we already have in our structure. We don't need to go further. So let's call it queue dot add our string to get started, and as we have already visited the first string, we also have to add that same thing to our set. Now, as long as our queue is not empty, because we will keep updating our queue, we keep going, and we will also be making sure that at every given point, wherever we have any strings in the queue, then we get started with the first one. Let's call it string current one is equal to queue.pop. So we're going to get out the first string, and then we're going to check if the first string itself, or I mean in this scenario it's going to be the first string, but in the further scenarios it's going to be child and child's child and child's child, and it's going to continue the same thing, if this by itself is a palindrome or not. So let's call some method is valid. Oh, I said palindrome. I think it's parenthesis. So edit parenthesis. In that case, we will set our found to true. Alright, and also we have to add it to our result list that we have created, which is called answer. So we will add this to the answer, and if we have already found then we do not need to loop through everything, so we're gonna just keep continuing this thing. Now we have two things to do. First, we have to see what if it's not the valid structure. So in that case, first of all, we have to go through, we have to find each possibility by removing just one element at a time. So let's say the first string itself was not a valid parenthesis. In that case, what we will do is current.length here. What we are trying to do is like let's say we have this string which is not valid. So in this case, let's check one of the scenario where there is a possibility that there might not be just the brackets, there might be some other characters. So for that, let's check current.character at I, it's not equal to the opening bracket, and current.character at I is not the closing bracket. If it's none of this scenario, then we don't want to deal with any of the brackets because it's not a bracket, so we can just keep continuing, so we don't have to think about that scenario at all. And let's create a temporary string. This would be the place where we remove one element at a time and then keep storing it into our queue, as well as set for not too much of recalculation. So let's say this is a temp, and this would be our main string is current dot substring, and we will be starting with 0 until the ith position, so it won't count the ith, and we are just gonna append the substring starting from I plus 1. So this is gonna not include the character at I in the current. Apart from that, it's gonna count everything and merge it together and keep it as one string. So we are just removing one element at a time, and then we will see how it goes. And we will check if our set does not contain this element, which would be our temp. That means we have not calculated this value at all, or this kind of string. Then we will just add it to our queue, and at the same time we will also add it to our set to make sure that next time we account for it. Okay, now that we are done with all these calculations, the other thing that we'll have to take care of is to check every single time where exactly let me see, we will be returning at the end. Let's make this one out of the way. Let's create a function to check if the given string is a valid parenthesis or not. Okay, let's make sure it's the same. Okay, now we will be given a string value. Let's call it string s, and let's create a variable count. By default, count will be 0. We can use a stack, but if there are multiple things to calculate, then it might be trickier with the count, so we are not going to use it. Then we wouldn't have to use it, but as here it's just going to be opening and closing brackets, it would be simple to use just the brackets and nothing else. So let's get started. So we have to go through each and every character in the given string. I is equal to 0, I is less than s dot length, I plus plus. Now if the character at I is an opening bracket, in that case we will increase our count. If character at I is a closing bracket, in that case we'll be minusing the count for sure, but at the same time we will check is the count already 0? That means we are doing plus minus, but at any point we got multiple ones, then at that time the count will be 0, even though it's not true. And we will also be doing the count minus minus at the same time. So let's do two words at one time. And we will be returning false in this situation. If everything goes as expected, then we will just return true. Alright, that's our function. And we also have to make a list of strings. We already are doing that. And alright, let's give it a shot. Ooh, my bad. Because here we are not returning the empty string, we are just returning a list with the empty string. That's one. And ooh. Same mistake again and again. I need to return the answer. Okay, first one's accepted. Let's submit. Ooh, looks like I missed something. Interesting. Apparently, it's not supposed to be true. It's supposed to be at the end. There might be possibilities that we have multiple brackets left or multiple starting ones are there, so there might be a positive value at there. So count might not be 0 at this place, so it's not going to return false, but at the end we need to check if the count is 0. And once we do that, this one should work, and voila, this also should work. So that's pretty much it. The complexity, it keeps changing every single time I run, so I'm not sure what to say about that, but thank you and have a good day. I think that's